Now, so this is the starting of the second cut, okay? So the cuts that you're going to make to let that first colour come through. So in the case of my print here, the first colour was red. The parts I am going to cut away are going to be the parts that are going to come out red, okay? So what I can do at this stage is go over my lino print and mark out all the bits that I want the red to come through, okay? But for me and the way I have my pattern marked out, I kind of know that it's going to be all of this section here. I want to remove all of this section here, all of this section, maybe like every second line here, this section, every alternate line here, and maybe all of this section, okay? Other parts that I might take out is I might add some lines and stuff into these ones that we didn't touch for the first cut, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is take out the big sections. The cutter that I'm using this time is the number 1. I'm using that one just because in this particular set it's still quite thick or quite wide. If you have a really small V cutter that's your number 1, don't use that. You want something that's kind of a wide V to start taking out these bigger sections. So I'm actually going to start here. Now when you're doing things like this, try and keep all your cuts going in the same direction unless it's a design thing and you want a kind of a crisscross effect. So what can happen is when you've got channels like this, sometimes the ink will pick up on like some of these higher bits, okay, and then you have a little bit of line coming through. So just be careful of that your lines, if they do come through onto your print, that they're following the way that you want it to come. So I'm just going to recap on cutting quickly. Use your cutting boards, okay, your wooden boards. I don't have the same as what we use, but basically you've got your cutting bit that you're going to cut towards, and then you've got your bit on the bottom that will clamp onto the edge of the table for you, okay, and stop that board slipping like mine does. So then the second bit is the way you hold it. Index finger on the top, other hands wrap around, the ball of it fits into the palm of your hand here. When you're cutting, hold it up a bit and go into the lino. Once you've gone in, just a millimetre, not much, then straighten it out so that the bottom line on that cutting blade is parallel to your cutting surface. Okay, so what I mean by that is that this part here is parallel to the surface that you're cutting on. So you're moving along like that. If you keep at your higher angle and you cut, you're going to end up scooping out a big hole out of your lino, okay, which was what accidentally happened earlier. So it can be fixed, but just try not to do it because you'll end up with a more intact piece of lino. Now, other problems that can happen when you're cutting is you'll feel that the lino isn't kind of cutting, you don't have that cutting like butter kind of feel. Okay, that can be for a few reasons. It could be that, you know, the first thing to check is just always that you have the actual cutting part facing out instead of the rounded edge, okay? And that might seem fairly obvious, but it happens, okay? The other thing is that you just might have a cutting blade on your handle that is blunt. Okay, that has just been made blunt overuse. So in that case, just change it and get a different one. Okay, we usually always have plenty of them in the room, so it's not a big deal. Now, when I overprint this, some of those lines are quite high, so I might get little black lines. So you want to decide whether you want those gone or whether you actually like that effect, that there's going to be some black lines coming forward on that. So I'm just going to leave it so that you can see what I mean. The next part that I want to cut out is this here. So I've just swiveled my bit of lino around so I can cut forward all the time, and I'm not cutting into my hand. So if you watch where I have my left hand, it's always behind the cutting tool. Now, what I'm doing is I'm just selecting that wide cutting tool that has kind of that flattened edge. Hopefully you can see there's a flat edge on this instead of a rounded one. What I want to do with this is just go over that section that I've just cut and very, very carefully flatten out some of these cutting marks. The reason why you do this is just to make sure that when you do ink it up and print, that none of these little bits are going to be tall and are going to catch ink on you. Now, so that is the lino block second cut complete. We are now ready to move on to printing and overprinting onto the sheet. Okay, so now you can see it's better. You can see how different that is. Okay, so you've got a mirror image here, but you can see, you know, parts where I've cut out more lines here. I've cut lines into this section. That section's still pretty similar because it was cut out. So obviously where there's white coming through, I can't cut any more, so they're just going to stay white. Okay. Sections that are going to maybe come up with a bit more interest this time is here where I've done little kind of marks, so that will turn up here, and you've got these lines here and these smaller triangles there and there. Okay, so we'll go on to the next stage.